An enormous amount of confusion in the world of ideas stems from a misunderstanding of the nature of mathematics. This video is going to be a short introduction to the field, ways to think about mathematics more clearly. So the first question that you need to clearly try to answer in the world of mathematics is this: what are numbers? We use numbers all the time. We make calculations and we manipulate numbers in the most effective way for human beings. What the heck are numbers in the first place? Consider a very easy example which illustrates kind of the conundrums when thinking about the metaphysics of mathematics. Boom! Observe this phenomenon. What is it that is in this room, in this screen that you're seeing? Well, there's the picture of me, and there's the background, and we have the fingers, we have this finger, and this finger. The question is this: is the number 3 part of what exists in this frame? We know we have 3 fingers, but do we have 3 in addition to the 3 fingers? And there's a couple ways of answering this. One, people think that 3 is some kind of independent object that is out there. In addition to the 3 fingers, you have 3 itself. You have another group of people that say, well, no, that's kind of silly. 3 is not something that is separate from what it's referencing. 3 is just a concept. It's something that our minds are bringing to the table. It's not out there in reality. The first camp is what's called Platonism, mathematical Platonism, which says that numbers are objects which exist separate of our minds in another world. There's this Platonic realm out there in which you have numbers that are existent, that 3, 4, 5, and all sorts of mathematical equations that have a real tangible existence, but it's in a different universe than ours. I'm what you could call a conceptualist, which means I think numbers are fundamentally concepts. They aren't these independent objects which are out there in a different world. They aren't non-existent, rather they are mental objects in the mental world. And what that means is, without minds, numbers wouldn't exist. I'll give you a couple of examples. So the original question is, does 3 exist? Does the number 3 exist? Let me change the question a little bit and you'll see this line of reasoning. What if I were to ask you, does several exist? Well, several what? Several doesn't exist. Several is just a word that is used to describe several things. You have to have, it's like an adjective. You have to have something that the adjective is describing. You can't just have several by itself. And this is the way that people confuse thinking about 3. You can't have 3 by itself. It's 3 what? It's 3x. It's 3 something. It's 3 apples. It's 3 fingers. You can't disembody the 3 from what you're referencing. Now, there's one error we need to avoid when people sometimes claim that numbers are concepts. They sometimes imply that mathematical relationships are therefore by convention, that 2 + 2 = 4 is merely a convention, and it's not something you can know with certainty. That is not the case. Though numbers are conceptual, the relationships between our concepts are of logical necessity. So 1 + 1 = 2 is not something I have to go out and test in the world. That is something which is logically necessary. In reality, all throughout the universe, you have these mathematical relationships that your mind can comprehend. It's no different than understanding a square and a circle. In reality, there is no perfect square, there is no perfect circle in regular physical reality. We have a mental conception of these things, and we can say with perfect certainty, there is no perfect circle which is also a perfect square. This is not an empirical hypothesis. It's logically necessary, and yet it's something that's entirely in our minds. This way of thinking, of understanding numbers as concepts, might seem very esoteric and not important, but in fact it's critically important, especially when we start discussing set theory. The way that people make errors in mathematics, as I've spoken about before, is specifically in how they conceive of sets of numbers. And then they interject this concept of infinity with sets. They think there are these things as infinite sets that are actually existent. And as I will illustrate in the future, this is conceptually incoherent. You have to understand numbers as created by the mind, and that becomes very important when you start thinking clearly about the concept of infinity. If you like these ideas, make sure to subscribe. And if you want to help create a more rational worldview, then please head over to my Patreon page and you can support content like this for $1.